turn that.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Section 325 podcast solo edition. Zach's not here, left me high and dry. What a son of a boop. We'll let him off the hook, though. So I got to hit Tiger Woods to get the show started. It's football season. We are here. Week number 2 just happened in the preseason, so it's exciting. You're going to start seeing some people get cut and seeing who your starters are going to be, who the backups are going to be. And really, we want to hear about your predictions for the year. Who's your team? Where are they going to finish? We want to know these things. So there's nothing better than the NFL, especially here in the United States, unless you're a soccer fan and you live in Europe. And we don't know that anybody in Europe's listening to our show, but who knows? We could be the most popular podcast in that section of the world. But what we want to talk about today is fantasy football. I'm not a huge fan. I don't know anything about it. I always lose. I've won 1 year, the entire year, all the years I've been playing. But fantasy football is not my favorite thing to do, mainly because I'm horrible at it. And so I'm bringing on somebody who I think is, he is good at fantasy football. He's in some big leagues. I'm going to let him tell you more about that. But kind of the strategies that he goes through, what he does to really have success in fantasy football, which I'm sure all of you are interested in if you are in fantasy football. So I will just not waste any time because I'm lonely up here. Again, all by myself today. Zach couldn't be here, but I want to bring on Aaron Marsh, everybody. Aaron Marsh, let's give it up. All right, welcome, Aaron. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you on, man. I know that you have been really a stud in the fantasy football world, and I just sit back and go, okay, whatever. I don't understand it all, but a little history about Aaron and I. We met on Tinder.
That is a true story.
It's a true story. We did meet on Tinder, not with each other, but you dated a friend of mine, went out on a date with a friend of mine, and then she somehow tells me after your date that, I don't know, you guys were just talking about me, and then I go out that night, and she says, hey, my date from Tinder is there and he sees you, and I want to know how you know what I look like. But apparently you guys were talking about me on the date.
I mean, you're pretty hard to miss in the real world out there. So we were at Capone's, and I remember just leaning back, and Sean was to my left, and he leaned back. He's like, hey, are you Aaron? Which I am, and we've been good friends ever since.
Yeah. So that's how we met. So I guess theoretically through Tinder, we weren't on there to meet each other, but we met each other.
This is a true story, and a story we love to tell.
Tinder, just bringing people together, and that's actually, this show is sponsored by Tinder. Thank you for the for all the money that you don't send in, but yeah, we're sponsored by Tinder.
Huge shout out.
Yeah, huge shout out. So anyway, let's get right into it.
I love it.
Aaron, you're putting together a team. You're heading into the draft. What's the first thing you're looking at? You want to have a successful team, and first off, tell everybody about some of these leagues that you're in, that it means a lot to you to do.
Yeah. So first of all, Sean, thanks for having me on the show. I never thought the day would come where a Rams fan would be allowed on the show, but maybe we'll have to edit that out.
My heart just rate just went up. I just had
it's okay. I am in a couple of bigger leagues. I know I'm in one league which has a 5-figure buy-in. We do have a few celebrities on that team. Unfortunately, I can't say them on the pod, but off camera, I can probably tell you who we play with. But yeah, so these leagues mean a lot to myself, to my partner, who I go in these leagues together with. And it is a lot of fun. It is a lot of pressure as we go through them. So because we do have a lot of money on the line, we do put a lot of research and time into the draft. So as you're preparing for your draft, the first thing that you want to know is what your draft order is, like where you're picking. So if you're drafting number 4 or if you're drafting number 8, that's important.
First off, not to interrupt, but I've been in $50 and $100 buy-ins, okay? So nothing comparable to a 5-figure buy-in.
It's a lot. It's a lot of pressure, though. And again, everybody in those leagues is really, really good. Everybody is well prepared and show up. So you have to try to find those little edges to separate yourself from your competitors, which is a lot of fun.
Okay. So first things first, you're getting ready. It's time to put the work in and get prepared for your draft. What's the first thing you're doing, and then go from there?
Yeah, so the first thing I do is I run through a bunch of mock drafts. I'll probably do between 20 and 30 mock drafts through ESPN or Underdog Fantasy, and you're really trying to see what guys fall to you, what guys you can draft at your draft position. So the more times you do it, it almost becomes like muscle memory, right? So you just automatically know, okay, I'm in the second round. Hopefully Nick Chubb falls to me right here. That's my guy, right? And each round you kind of have targets that you are looking for. So again, mock drafts are super important.
So are these targets that you're looking for in your studies? Like, I want to have this guy. I know he's gonna. Because I remember 2-3 years ago, you're like, listen, Sean, if you can get Deebo Samuel, get him on your team, and I did. He lit up my scoreboard, and literally I went almost undefeated that year, highest scoring team. Unfortunately, I lost first round of the playoffs, which how fantasy goes for me. But that was one that you gave me that really helped me. But so you're sitting there, okay, do you go through guys that you want through your study? Or is it more like where I lean towards like what the so-called experts would say I should draft, and you kind of look at all that?
Well, I think you go into the draft with a game plan. So, for myself this year, I'm really targeting that top tier wide receiver in round 1. So I'm talking Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp. Those are the guys that I'm really trying to go after in round 1. When previously through most years, it's been really running back bias in those first couple rounds where it was like most guys would go running back. But the bust rate or bust potential for those running backs is what we're seeing. Even like Jonathan Taylor last year, who was like the consensus number 1 overall, he's still busted. But none of those top wide receivers, none of them busted last year. So when you are picking in the first round, you really want a guy that you can rely on for the rest of the season. That's going to be in there day in, day out. So you're
saying that you would take a wide receiver first when everybody always has said running backs the first 2 picks, most likely.
Yeah, we were ahead of the curve last year. We really liked Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. Last year were the 2 guys that we really targeted in our drafts last year. This year, again, not much has changed. We're going Justin Jefferson. I have Tyreek Hill above Jamar Chase. That's probably, you can flip-flop those guys, take your pick. I wouldn't fault anyone for drafting one, but and some of it really does come down to your scoring system. Like if you've ever heard of PPR, non-PPR, point per reception or not, those guys that get a lot of catches tend to be a little bit more valuable, like a Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp's the first guy that comes to my mind.
And again, that year I told you to take Deebo.
Yeah. I
took Cooper Kupp in every single one of my leagues that year, and I had both of those guys. I mean, we pretty much ran away with everything that year. It was a lot of fun.
I think I had both Cooper and Deebo. Yeah, and it is tremendous. So that's cool to know that you don't have to take that running back.
No, there's so much running back talent right now, and there's so many committees.
Yes,
that it is really hard. I mean, even in Seattle, right? You got Kenneth Walker, and he's the guy.
He's the guy. But look at Charbonnet now.
Charbonnet looks really good. In fact, I'm not taking a lot of Kenneth Walker in my drafts, but I am taking Charbonnet. In deep leagues where you take a lot of running backs, I think that he has a lot of value and is a deep sleeper for a lot of teams.
Yeah, he's got a little beast mode into him. The way he runs low to the ground, shoulders are always pointed forward.
Yep.
And he'll drop that helmet if he has to.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised. I know, like last year, Geno kind of crept up on a lot of people. He went undrafted in most leagues. But he did finish as a top 10 fantasy quarterback last year.
He was.
So Geno, if we're talking specifically the Seahawks, I think that you really have Geno going in later rounds. He would be, a tier below like the top 5 or 6 guys, but he's right there. If you miss out on those guys, Geno's a nice pick.
Where do you put Kirk Cousins?
I like Kirk Cousins. I would probably have him right around the 18th rated quarterback. And again, I know I sent you a copy of the draft guide. I'm just finishing it up, and if anybody that's listening wants a copy of it, feel free to hit up Sean or get in touch, and we'll make sure that we get you over a copy of it. But yeah, Kirk Cousins, He has, and I don't know the exact stats, but he has led the NFL in like passing yards over like the last like 6 seasons or something like that. He's like number one. So Kirk Cousins is one of those guys where like maybe you don't want him come playoff time, but regular season, he can sling it, and he's a lot of fun to watch. But I wouldn't put Kirk Cousins in the top 10.
Yeah, I was just curious. I watched I don't know if you watched the Netflix the quarterback.
Yes.
Dude, how do you not like Kirk Cousins more?
No,
one?
You have to.
Great guy, and but he is throwing to your guy Jefferson. So
Yes.
I mean, do you double? Does that tempt you to double dip?
It does. We call it stacking. So anytime you take a quarterback and take the receiver and or the running back, anytime those guys connect, it's just like double the scoring, double the fun. So you do try to stack guys, but you don't like reach for a guy or take a guy above, his ADP just because you want the stack. That you want to make sure that you're not reaching for guys and you're trying to find value in every single round.
So wide receivers, your first pick. Where are you leaning on your next pick?
So the draft strategy that we're really focusing on this year is going with that top tier wide receiver round 1. And then we're coming back in the second round and we're really trying to pair him with a top running back. Guys that, used to go in the first round, but are now going in the second round. The guy that I'm really going after is Nick Chubb. I think with that offensive line and without, they lost they lost Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
So I think Chubb's workload is just going to be really heavy this year, and he's really consistent. He can catch the ball.
Dude can handle it. He's squatting 600 pounds like that's nothing.
And he stays healthy for the majority of his career. So he's somebody that I'm really going after with my second round pick. I love Tony Pollard. I wouldn't fault you if you chose Pollard over Nick Chubb. I personally would go Chubb, but I think in that offense, I think Pollard's going to do really well in Dallas. He's going to get all the touches. There's no Zeke
guy,
there.
Though. Do you think his body holds up?
I think that's the big question. I think that's why I would lean with a Chubb over Pollard, just because I think that he can withstand the heavy workload. Mm-hmm. But even guys like Derrick Henry, they're going in the second round right now. Eckler, towards the end of the first round.
Interesting.
But I think the guy that you're going to see just have the breakout year. And in fact, my partner and I this morning were having a debate. So this whole time we've been really focused on Tyreek Hill. That's who we want. Mm-hmm. But after seeing Bijan play over the weekend, I'm thinking to myself, man, maybe we take Bijan at the number, because we have the number 4 pick in our big league.
Okay. Is it snake?
It is a snake. So we're pretty sure that McCaffrey, Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase will be the first 3 picks off the board.
McCaffrey's scary, though. Other than last year, has he had a year where he hasn't gotten injured?
Yeah, McCaffrey's had a couple. He set the at the time the high bar for fantasy points. But yeah, McCaffrey is, when healthy, is over 25 fantasy points a game.
Yeah,
and it's you can't replicate that.
So then you go to, let's say, take Seattle's wide receivers, for instance. That would be any of those guys would be tough to pick because there's so many good players, even in Jigba. Do you look at a team that's got, so many good receivers? How do you just pick one? Because Seattle's never been known for just going to one guy like a Jefferson or a Chase. They just spread it around in their offense. So do you look at how coaches run their offensive programs too?
Absolutely. And in fact, when you're looking at different schemes, who the offensive coordinator is, Dallas is one of the teams I'm shying a little bit away from as they lost their OC. So he's gone.
Chargers now.
Yeah. So I'm higher on the Chargers now. With Mike McCarthy, he's going to be calling the plays. So I don't, who knows?
Yeah, McCarthy's old school.
Yeah, so I think that probably bodes well for Pollard and the run game. But, do you want CeeDee Lamb? Do you want Dak?
CeeDee,
you do.
To me, dude, that guy, he is a good wide receiver.
And he's improved every single year he's been in the league. He's gotten more catches, more TDs, more yards every season. So I think you're seeing CeeDee go early in the second round. I think he's one of those top wide receivers. He's going above guys like Jalen Waddle, who I like a lot. He's a big target for me in the second round. If we don't go Tyreek Hill, I think that Waddle would be someone that we would target in that second round.
Yeah, both guys lit it up last year with and that's the other flip of it, right? Tua. Can Tua stay healthy to get these guys the ball? And who is their backup? I don't even remember.
Yeah. I wanted to say Teddy Bridgewater, but I think he moved on.
Yeah, Bridgewater just started a preseason game. Yeah, Detroit. He wore the number 50.
Yeah, 50. What's funny is when you look at the splits last year with Tua in and Tua out, Hill's numbers were almost the same.
Okay.
So they weren't super dependent on Tua. But again, a healthy Tua, we know that Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill just eat that target share up. And they're two guys that you can really rely on.
Do you think guys will take a chance on Tua, picking him up?
Yeah, I think you'll see Tua will be. If you miss on the top four guys, and I'm talking Mahomes, Jalen Hurts. I have Jalen Hurts number 1. I have Mahomes number 2. I have Josh Allen number 3. I have Justin Fields number 4.
Why is Fields so high? I know that he ran all over the place last year.
Yes. It's
not for his arm, right? It's just for him running the ball specifically.
I mean, he had like 4 games last year in a row where he was like 50 points a game and just lit the fantasy world on fire, rushing for over 100 yards, throwing for a couple TDs, rushing in a couple TDs. I think he truly is a special talent. I think with DJ Moore coming over this year and that offensive line getting a little bit better, Dave Montgomery moving on to Detroit, and now you see Khalil Herbert.
Did you see Moore's first time he touched the ball in that preseason game?
Touchdown.
Wide receiver screen, and he's gone.
Yeah. So I think what they're going to really try to do in Chicago is make the throws easier for Justin Fields. I don't think that you're going to see him dropping back and not having an NDI where he's going. I think they're going to make it real simple. But again, I love Justin Fields. I think he's my number 4. I would take him above Justin Herbert, who I have at 5. And I think Herbert's going to have a big year too. I'm big on him.
So you go wide receiver, you go running back. Okay, you're coming back again.
Yep.
This is where this is going to get sticky, right? You have a plan for 1 and 2. Do you skip over a quarterback, a tight end? Where do you go next?
So years past, I was always a wait on your QB guy. Always. I would be, okay, we'll take him in the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th round. I'll always wait because the difference in production between, let's say, the 6th quarterback and the 12th quarterback was very negligible. It was almost nothing. But the difference between a guy you pick in the 3rd round and a guy you pick in the 6th round, or wide receiver, there's a huge difference in production. But the top 4 guys, their production is so much higher than the rest that we're seeing all those top QBs go in the 3rd round. Now, if you're in a casual league and it's just like ESPN with like your buddies or whatnot, you might see a Mahomes get drafted in the 1st round or something like that. But when you're in bigger leagues with guys that really know what they're doing, you're seeing QBs go in the 3rd round. So Mahomes and Hurts, you can flip-flop those. I see, each of them go ahead, but I like Hurts. He averaged 0.6 points more than Mahomes last year. And I just think with that offensive line, with their scheme, with everything, with the weapons that he has, with A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith came on huge at the end of last year. And with Dallas Goedert, I just think you're going to see a lot of points in that offense.
Yeah, who is that guy who's like a little mini Debo coming out of the backfield? What's that guy's name?
Well, they have a couple. They have they got your boy, Rashard Penny.
Yeah, they got him. Picked him up, which he's good if he stays healthy.
He's... there's a lot of stats out there, but there's times when he has been the number 1, fantasy running back weeks in a row in the NFL. So he has a ton of talent. They have Kenneth Gainwell, and then they signed DeAndre Swift over
that's right.
from Detroit.
I was shocked that Detroit let him go.
So, and for next to nothing.
Yeah, they let go of both their top running backs.
But then they drafted the Jamari Gibbs.
Right.
And
they don't have to pay him.
No, and you know what? He is a special player.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing him being drafted in the 4th round, and he's a steal. So I think there's some RBs out there that if you miss on a McCaffrey or if you miss on Nick Chubb, I think then you want to wait until the 4th round, and then there are guys that will be available, and
Okay.
like Jamari Gibbs.
So you're getting your wide receiver first, then your running back, and then you're talking maybe a quarterback.
I'm going quarterback in the 3rd round. I'm not leaving the 3rd round without a quarterback.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're getting that quarterback. Now you're getting to the next round. You don't have a tight end. Obviously, you wait on a tight end a little bit, but do you go back to wide receiver, running back?
Yeah. You want to go probably back to wide receiver. And in that 4th round, that's where you're seeing guys like DK Metcalf. If you're lucky, you might be able to get a T. Higgins. So those are the guys that you're really trying to target in that 4th round. And you're really looking at like what's the value, right?
Okay. Well, who's the Deebo Samuel of this year, like you told me a few years ago? Who's the guy that you could say, okay, nobody's really looking at this guy. You want to even tell us? I mean, I don't know. That you're like, for sure, I'm taking this guy. That nobody else is going to, and he's going to light up the scoreboard.
Well, I'll give you one, and you might laugh at me, but I'm taking him in pretty much every draft because of where he's being taken and where I think his value will be, and that's Cortland Sutton.
Oh, okay.
So, a lot of guys took him in the 3rd round last year. If you did, he was definitely a bust for you. Russ played terrible. Mm-hmm. The Hackett situation was awful. But looking at Denver this year, Russ is, I don't know if he went on Weight Watchers or what he did, but he is lean.
He looks like he did in his first 2 seasons
Yes.
when we won our Super Bowl.
He looks like he can run a 4.5.
Yeah.
He's fast.
Well, he did look quicker, and he's noticeably smaller.
Yes. So I think Sean Payton really
14 or
challenged
17
him.
pounds is all they said he lost, but man, that was a big difference for him.
It looks like a lot. But Sean Payton really challenged him to come in this year.
Sean Payton might have found the weight that Russell lost. I saw him on the sideline. He's looking a little, he's got some man boobs going on.
I ran into him at the Community Cancer Fund.
Oh, really? He was there?
And I chatted with him. I asked him if he was going to be the coach of Dallas. And he kind of shrugged at me, but obviously that didn't work out now that he's in Denver. But I think Cortland Sutton is a guy that's being drafted in like the 8th or 9th round, and I think he's going to return, 3rd or 4th round value. I mean, every single read, if you watch those Denver games, the first read is a Cortland Sutton. Now, Jerry Jeudy has a lot of talent. He's being drafted in like the 4th round, and Sutton's like kind of like the afterthought. And I really think that Sutton should be drafted on all your teams. I'll give you one more too. Romeo Doubs on Green Bay. I think Green Bay is going to surprise a lot of people this year. I know Jordan Love has got no love, right?
Other than from his own guys.
Right.
His own guys are talking very highly of him, but, I mean, that's kind of a good teammate. You got to do those things.
You do. So you're seeing Christian Watson, who is an unbelievable talent, who had a really good fantasy year last year. You're seeing him being drafted, in that 4th, 5th round. But Dobbs is being drafted like in the 10th or 11th round. And, I think in the last game, Jordan Love ran 17. He had 17 snaps, and Dobbs is on for all 17 of them.
Oh, God.
And so is Christian Watson. So, and they have a tight end there. Oh, his name is eluding me at the moment. Who I think is almost a must draft as your backup. I think that's the guy that you really want on your team if you're looking for a backup.
Yeah, talk about tight ends. Who's your top 5 tight ends in the league?
Yeah, so it's pretty funny because this does change like on a weekly basis. There was a guy that I was really down on, and I didn't think that he would do much this year, but now he is looking really, really good. And I'll save that name for you for 1 second. But yeah, I mean, Travis Kelce is the undisputed.
Yeah.
Okay. He's in a tier all by himself. He's going in the 1st round of every single fantasy draft. And if you can't pass him, if you have like the 9th, 10th, or 11th pick, I mean, you just can't pass. He's so consistent. He's going to score a ton of touchdowns.
A ton.
And he's going to get over 100 catches. You know that. Mm-hmm. And he stays healthy. That's the thing. He's consistent. He's healthy, and he scores.
He's got it's weird. Like it's like no one knows how to tackle him. He's the only tight end that I've ever watched who's more like a wide receiver. When he catches the ball, he's a threat to run.
Yes.
Gronk was a little bit like that, but most of your tight ends, like even who was the guy? He just got in trouble over the weekend for having like a seizure or something. He was with New Orleans, then came to Seattle. Jimmy.
Jimmy Graham?
Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, the old saint.
Jimmy Graham, when he came to Seattle, so excited. Like, oh, here's this guy. And every time he'd catch a ball, he'd go down with the first little tackle or he'd stumble down.
Kelsey doesn't go down.
And that's all these tight ends. They go and catch a ball and they just fall down because they have no athletic ability all of a sudden. I don't know what it is, but
no, I like
Kelsey is like, who's similar to the guy in San Francisco.
So I would put Mark Andrews just above George Kittle. So Mark Andrews is, for some reason, him and Lamar, there's just something there. It's magical. Yeah. Their connection. Mark Andrews, huge numbers last year in fantasy. So, you just got to take him in the third round. And that's like where that decision comes in. It's like, do I want to take a tight end or do I want to take another top wide receiver? I tend to pass on that tight end right there because I'm targeting Dallas Goedert, which is going in like the 7th round. I like his value versus like a Mark Andrews versus George Kittle's great, but he never stays healthy. So, it's high risk, high reward. And in fantasy, I think there's a quote that I love, and it's by Nick Ercolano, and he's with a brand called BDGE, who I love. But it's like, don't look for injuries; they will find you. So you don't want to go after guys that are hurt or have an injury history. Injury optimism is the number one flaw for most fantasy players. Is they think that, I'm going to go pick this guy up. He's going to be back in 2 and 3 weeks. He'll be back in 2 weeks. No, he'll probably be back longer.
When you're picking these guys, how many backup plans do you have? Because obviously you got the 4th pick. There's 3 guys ahead of you, and then there's all the people after you.
Yep.
So the first round might go your way. Now you get to the 2nd round. Let's say it's not going your way. How many backup plans do you keep?
Well, we go over our rankings position by position, number by number, and we're constantly moving guys up and down. So that way on draft day, when you're on the clock, you don't fall apart and make a bad pick.
Okay.
So I think that's, if you have a list, you cross it off. If you're going to make a mistake, maybe just go to the highest person on your list. But there's guys that I just simply won't draft, this year, regardless of where they're ranked and whether they're available or not. I'll give you an example. Like I won't take Javonte Williams this year. I know he looked decent last night coming back, but I just don't take running backs the first year after they blow their knee out. Now the following year, I'm all in. Like I liked Saquon last year. We had Saquon, but I didn't take him the year prior. So regardless of how well they rehab or how the news comes out of camp or all the beat writers are all hyping him up, Javonte Williams looked good. They threw a pass to him, but they got, P. Ryan there, Samandre P. Ryan. And if anybody had Joe Mixon last year, you knew that any third down, Mixon was out of the game, and here comes P. Ryan. And it was really frustrating if you were a Joe Mixon owner. I wasn't. But he's going to be the same thing in Denver. He's going to get a lot of run. He's going to catch a ton of balls. He's going to split the early work with Javonte. Maybe towards the end of the year when he's full speed, he'll get that work back. But he's a sneaky good player. So that's one guy I'm just not taking at all.
Okay.
For nothing. Okay. Now, let's go to your Seahawks for a second because I know your audience, right? They're Hawks fans.
We have a few Hawks fans watching.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of buzz around your boy JSN, and rightfully so, right? He's got a lot of talent, great hands, smooth route runner, in and out of the breaks. If you're a fantasy guy and you really want to get serious into this, there are some resources that you can really go at. One of them is Matt Harmon's perception reception. I always say that wrong. But Google Matt Harmon. He puts out the most detailed and analytical stats for wide receivers. So he charts everything versus man, versus press coverage, how successful they are, and JSN ranks out really, really well. But again, he's being taken in like the 5th round right now, and I just think that's too high. So I won't be drafting any JSN. Give me all the DK Metcalf I love and your other boy.
Well, that's how I'm looking at it, right? Is defenses are going to have to account for that third receiver now.
Yep.
Where before, they didn't really have to. We didn't really have an explosive guy or a dependable guy that even maybe the offense game planned around. But now they're going to have games where they go after, in Jigba, and they're going to have the normal, hitting up DK and then Tyler Lockett, who's always been our guy. Like, that's the guy. Anybody who's a Seahawks fan knows that Tyler Lockett's the number one wide receiver.
It's like 6 years in a row over 1,000 yards.
And, when Baldwin was there, it was Baldwin, and then it was, I'm forgetting his name all of a sudden.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But give me all the TJ Lockett. I'll take all of him all day long. I know early in the season especially, he is just a beast. I mean, he's a catch machine. He's a deep threat. Geno loves him. They obviously have a connection.
Huge connection. And then if you watch towards the end of last year, even in the playoff game against the Niners, DK had a game.
Oh, yeah.
He had a game. So now you throw in a third wide receiver who's not just a third wide receiver. He could probably be a number one on a lot of teams.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, how do you game plan against that? So, but you're definitely taking a Lockett or a DK before.
I am. And not because I don't believe in JSN, but because of where he's being drafted. So I just don't want JSN with 5th round draft capital. I'd much rather have Tyler Lockett, who's we know can perform, we know has the 6 straight years, who knows he's been healthy. So that's the guy that I want.
Okay.
So I'm taking a lot of Lockett in a lot of my drafts for sure.
How many running backs do you want to have on your team?
So I think you want 5.
5 running backs.
Yeah. So you want 5, probably at least 5 wide receivers, if not 6. You want to take 2 QBs, 2 tight ends. Please don't draft a kicker or defense until your last 2 rounds. I think that's a mistake a lot of people do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just not worth it, right? I mean,
fantasy defenses are the hardest thing to predict year over year. Yes, there's Justin Tucker. There's a couple other guys out there that you just know are going to be good kickers. But Harrison Buckner being another one because of the offenses they're in.
But they're not going to outscore another kicker by a huge amount.
No. They're even like a guy like Will Lutz and these guys. I mean, the difference, it's really Tucker and Buckner, and then the rest of the guys are pretty similar. So, yeah, don't waste draft capital on kickers. Please wait till the last round, for sure.
Okay. So when you're in the middle of draft and you're in this big league where these guys all know stuff, are there still times where somebody drafts somebody and you're like, oh my gosh, they left so-and-so on the board? Why would they do that?
So, I mean, I'll tell a true story from last year. So my partner and we have a third partner because of the amount of money that's involved. And it came down to draft time, our first pick. We were up on the board. We had the 10th pick, so we had the 10th and the 11th. And I really wanted Stephon Diggs last year. He was the guy that I wanted at the end of the draft, who I believed in, and I wanted Saquon. But I was overruled, and my partners took DeAndre Swift. So if you know the season he had last year versus what Diggs did,
yeah,
it was a big mistake. And it did not go well for us. So there is, sometimes you even get in your own team, there is some dissension sometimes, which this year we're really trying to avoid, because when you're on the clock and that time is like ticking down and it's nervous and you got to make a pick and there's a room full of guys.
I can't even imagine. It's already nerve wracking, but to have thousands and thousands of dollars on the line, I can't even imagine or fathom.
Oh, and I wasn't in person to that league last year. I'm flying down this year. I'll be attending live this year because we're going to avoid that debacle we had last year.
Okay, good.
But when there's a bunch of guys in the draft room, each team shows up with like 5 to 6 guys. They got their laptops, their sheets, they got all their things.
When is your draft?
September 5th.
Okay. I know guys that are doing them right now and last weekend. And is that a little early?
I think it's a little early only because I want to get through the 3rd week of preseason.
We have 2 weeks of available no football after the preseason. Why wouldn't you wait?
Because we shrunk the preseason down. It's only 3 games. So have the third game and then have your drafts. It doesn't make any sense to have them now.
Actually, I agree 100%.
And not that we're going to have a lot of guys go down. I mean, Sean McVay pretty much proved when the Rams won the Super Bowl that, like, you just don't have to play your starters during preseason.
Yeah.
And he started that trend, and we're still seeing that today where, if guys get 1 or 2 drives in, that's all they're going to get. They may play, like, the first half of that third game.
Yeah.
And that would be it.
Yeah, I mean, everybody forgets that they're working in practice every day, right? It's not just game. It's every day. They're putting them in different scenarios, different things, and watching film like all get out.
Yeah.
And but it, as a fan, you want to see, like, I watched the Seahawks game, and I was like, oh, I got to at least watch the first drive or two because, Geno's starting, and Geno looked good. Geno looked sharp. He looked ready to go.
He is one of those guys where he just gets better and better and better every year. He's a student of the game.
Dude, guy can spin the ball.
Yes.
I mean, he can spin the ball. I mean, and nobody knew that. And you hear him talk and be like, when he got to Seattle, for instance, they say, hey, number one's over here. And he said he ran over there because he said, I don't see myself as a 2. I'm a number 1. I just happen to be the backup.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, what a mindset. He said he had that every place he's ever been.
I think if you have that mentality of, like, I am the starter and I'm going to make this happen, I think that's how you prepare yourself every week. If you are the backup, is like, I'm going to start this week.
Yeah.
You watch the same film, you prepare just like you're going to start, so that when you do eventually start, you are ready.
Yeah. So, that's exciting. So, okay, defense, kicker, last. You're going 5 wide receivers, 5 running backs, 2 quarterbacks, and
2 tight ends. Yeah, 2 tight ends. And you might draft 2 defenses, depending on your league settings and how many roster spots are available.
Okay, so we got through the draft. Now you're setting your lineup. So this is the one question that I've always had. I'm like, do you go with your gut on what you think a player's going to do, or do you sit there and go, oh, ESPN, NFL Network, whoever else you're playing on, they're predicting these guys to have more points? And it seems to me that those guys are always wrong.
I wish we could have my partner Jason on, because this is literally our my wife is so annoyed with our fantasy football talk.
I bet.
And how much we debate, starting one guy versus another guy on a week-to-week basis. But I think trust your gut. If you have a feeling about a guy, I've seen experts be wrong, all the time. Whether it's Matthew Berry or these other guys on starts.
How do you trust your gut when you got one, maybe 2, another guy that you all have to come to an agreement on? What if everybody's gut's different?
Somebody's got to make that ultimate decision on your team. For us, that is Jason. So he makes does he put in the most money? He might put the most money into the league. So that might give him the most say.
Well, yeah, I would.
There's something about that.
Yeah.
But it is good, though, where, if we all get the information together, and sometimes it's super easy, right? Your guys are your guys. Like, your starters are your starters. Like, you drafted them for a reason. Don't get, like, tricky and be like, oh, this guy's playing, like, this really weak defense. They're number 32 against the pass. So all of a sudden he's going to have a breakout game. No, he's still, Devontae Parker. He still plays on the Patriots. I don't care who they're playing. I mean, it's going to be really hard for that guy to get in my lineup.
Sure.
Over, Cooper Kupp or Tyreek Hill. I mean, you're never sitting those guys.
Yeah.
For somebody like that.
How do you play anybody over Cooper Kupp? I mean, guy's amazing.
You just don't. So I think guys can sometimes overanalyze those things. And again, your guys are your guys for a reason.
Okay.
And stick to that.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, bye weeks are a different story. Injuries are a different story. So then you got to find guys. But you can always find receivers on the waiver wire. I think that's the one thing through the years is that you can always find a receiver that can get you 7-8 points.
So are you a guy that rides your team, or do you watch that waiver wire pretty hard, and do you make trades along the way?
So the leagues I'm in are all no trade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Only because collusion, things like that, when you're playing for, some money, unfortunately, those things can happen. So the leagues I'm in are all no trade, but trades are fun. I think when you're playing in a casual league, you want to explore those. But there's always guys in the waiver wire that pop up. I mean, we picked up Garrett Wilson last year on the waiver wire.
Really?
Yeah, and Garrett Wilson is a second-round pick. In fact, I love Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
If you can get him in your second round and pair him with like let's say you do go running back in the first round. Let's say you go with Bijan, and you can pair him with, an A.J. Brown or...
I like A.J. Brown.
Right? So
Man, that guy. That's how I feel DK should be playing, to be honest. Why is he not as dominant as A.J. Brown?
He should be.
He absolutely should be.
He's faster. He's bigger. I think some of it comes down to... I mean, Jalen Hurts was really good at throwing that deep ball last year, and A.J. caught a lot of those passes.
But A.J. was good with a guy that's not necessarily a top-tier quarterback, too.
Well, he was really good with Tannehill.
That's what I mean.
But his numbers his career numbers, if you look at him, he set career marks in everything last year.
I will tell you, I feel like Geno trusts DK way more than Wilson did. Wilson didn't seem to want to go his way other than his rookie year.
And I don't know why. I mean, if you throw a jump ball up to DK, he's coming down with it.
Yeah.
More times than not.
It's hard to really judge anything that Wilson did in his last several years just because I don't think he wanted to be there.
No. I feel like he was forcing his way out.
Yeah.
I think we all can agree upon that.
Yeah, he wanted out and he got out. So, and good riddance. And it's, like I was talking to Zach just yesterday, it's amazing that last year as a Seahawk fan, we were like, well, maybe 3 wins. Let's beat Denver, get that first win. That's our Super Bowl. Okay. And let's just see how they build for the future.
Right.
And it feels like, what a difference a year makes. It feels like we've built and reloaded and we're ready to go.
So your boy Colin Cowherd picked the Seahawks to win the NFC West.
I mean,
I don't know if that's jinxing them or not, but...
I don't believe in any of that. But I mean, I could see how you'd want to do that. But, man, the Niners... Look, did you see who's their quarterback?
Purdy.
Purdy came out and was like zing, zing, zing. They didn't get the touchdown. They ended up with a field goal.
Right.
But man, he didn't lose a step.
So I'll give you another little tip, Sean. A lot of people are going to draft Debo this year. You don't want Debo. Okay. The reason that Debo was so effective that year is because he had 10 rushing touchdowns.
Well, he did lose weight and got back into shape like he was the year you told me. They were talking about that on the preseason game.
So,
but the other part of that is Seattle does not have the defense that the Niners do.
No.
And that
But
defense,
I'll tell you, when they play each other, though, those games are going to be high scoring. I'm telling you that right now.
Yeah, they know each other well, and you're not going to surprise them. It's just basically who wants it more and the turnovers. Turnovers have always been the key for those games. Now, in the playoff game, 49ers were on a mission.
Yeah.
And I still believe that they would have beat the Eagles if Purdy had not gotten hurt.
You're not alone in that. But the Niner that I really love this year is Brandon Ayuk.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He looks sharp, too.
He's the guy in the 49ers that you want. When you're sitting there and you're in the 7th, 8th round of your draft, if you're not taking Brandon Ayuk, something's wrong. Like, that's the guy you want.
Well, I think Seattle and the Niners are the top 2 teams. Whether, Cowherd's right or not, I don't know. I think the 49ers are definitely going to be at the number 1 spot. But I think Seattle gets in. But let's talk about your Rams. Like, where do you see in them? Like, we're not seeing anything special. But, however, I saw the coach, and they put together a nice little drive in their preseason game, and he was mic'd up, and he's like, new season. It's a new season. And, that might just be a statement for some guys, but that coach and that team, the way he said it, I'm like, okay, he knows something that we don't.
Yes. I love Sean McVay. I mean, I think we're lucky to have him as a head coach.
I think he's a great head coach.
I think he's top 5 in the league for head coaches.
Yeah, no doubt.
So we'll see. The Rams, when you win a Super Bowl, you can't keep everybody. Guys got to go. If Matt Stafford is healthy, we always have a chance.
Well, and they did try to negotiate his salary and his contract down, and he didn't do it.
I was a little disappointed in that as a Rams fan. I wish, he could have taken a little bit. We just saw it with Aaron Rodgers. He just took some money off the table.
He did, but he went to a new team, and he wants that championship, where Stafford never had a chance at a championship in Detroit. He came over and gave one to the Rams.
He's got a ring.
He's got everyone a ring.
Yep. So
he wasn't the sole reason, but he was a major reason. They didn't win a Super Bowl prior to him.
Yep.
So, I mean, in this time, but it's
the Rams defense is going to be it's going to be hard for us to make the playoffs because the defense is not. I mean, Aaron Donald's amazing, but he can't be everywhere.
They're predicting that he's going to be traded by week 6, 7, somewhere in there.
I think if the Rams are out of it, like completely out of it, like they go like 0-6, then you just go into full rebuild mode, and then Aaron Donald would be gone. But if they're competitive and they're in there, I mean, fantasy perspective, I'm only taking Cooper Kupp, and I'm taking Cam Akers. I think he's going to get the lion's share of the touches in the backfield.
He's a good running back.
He's not good. So here's my thing on.
I said he's a good running back.
I don't think he is good. But what happens in fantasy football is that you don't have to necessarily be good sometimes. You just have to have opportunities. And if you get opportunities, especially if they're what we call high value opportunities, like inside the 5-yard line, is the highest value target you can get in fantasy football is a carry inside the 5-yard line. Next is a pass target would be the second most. So you want guys that get targets. You want guys that have opportunities. Because if you're Zeke and you're better than Cam Akers, right? And now you're on New England, but you're only getting like 7 or 8 carries a game. You're not getting a lot of opportunity.
He looks pretty thick. He looks a little thicker than we remember him.
So Ramondre Stevenson was my like ride or die this year. He was the guy that I was like, got to take him in every draft. And then we started hearing the whispers about Zeke coming in. So I've backed off on that stance, but I do think that Ramondre is going to be really, really good. He's going to catch 1 million balls in New England.
Well, yeah, because they don't have any wide receivers.
I mean, they're bad up there.
Yeah.
So
they didn't even draft one.
They have nobody. They have Devontae Parker and a bunch of guys that I've never even heard of.
Yeah, that's sad.
So I like Ramondre. If you're in that 4th round and you can pick Ramondre Stevenson, he's a beast. And if he gets even like 50% of the goal line carries, then I think he'll be a top 10 fantasy running back pretty easily, actually, with his volume he's going to get and opportunities.
Well, I think that you've helped out our listeners for sure on a lot of the techniques that you use. Before we go, give us something, give us a little nugget, something that you feel would help. What's the biggest thing you could do, say, right now to help anybody that's going to be doing their draft in the next few weeks?
Well, if you're going to be doing your draft in the next few weeks, one, just get the draft guide. You don't need to do all the homework. I've already done it all for you. And if you just look at that top 150, and if you just draft according to the list, you will have a great team regardless. So if you haven't done any homework, or if you don't want to do the homework, then just pick up the draft guide. It's got all the step-by-step, round by round, who you should be picking. And again, I'm not a guy who watches a lot of tape, Sean. I'm not at home doing all this. But what I am is I accumulate a lot of information from people who are much, much smarter than I am.
And that's a big list, you guys. That's a big list. Anyway, we want to, before we get out of here, we want to leave you with we always do a Bible verse. And so we're going to do that today. Let me bring this up. If I can get some service here at the old 7-9 Media, because I have it on my phone. That was a shout out. Aaron does a great job for us. I know that you guys are there watching or seeing everything that Aaron does. And if there's anything you want to do, he does a lot. He does a lot of photography, videography, and obviously our podcast. So if that's what you're looking for, this is a guy you need to hit up. Along with all of our other sponsors, which will be down here at the bottom. You want to check those guys out. They do wonders and are the best at what they do. So use them. Okay, for some reason I have this in the King James version, so we're gonna change this over just for a second because I don't want to.
What book are you going out of today, Sean?
Philippians.
Ah, okay.
For it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose. And I wanted to read that verse because that's been huge in my life, right? Because I actually talked about that with a friend this morning at coffee. It was sometimes we have a purpose we want for our life, and we think we know what's best. And
Yes,
we
do.
get disappointed along the way when things don't work out the way we want them to. And I can attest to you, I've been very disappointed in a lot of areas of my life. But when I sit back and I trust God and I pray on it, even though I might be disappointed even at the time, I'm just like, I don't understand, like, why? And I know I'm not alone in that. There's many of you, and
For sure.
everybody. But to just give God that trust, and when you do, and you sit back and go, wow, God's purpose and what he wants for my life is always going to be better. So if you can come to a place where you trust that and know that God's purpose is always going to be better than your purpose or the things that you want, trust me, your life will be better. And so that's what we want to leave you with. And but yeah, big thanks to Aaron for coming on. Like I said, I know nothing about fantasy football. In fact, I downright hate it and refuse to play. But those of you who do, enjoy losing that money. But hopefully with Aaron's valued opinions and studying and all that, you guys can win. But we'll leave you, Aaron. I'm going to let you close the show out, hit Tiger Woods' head, because that's how we shut her down.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me, Sean.
You bet. All right, that's it. Section 325. We'll see you next week.